Welcome back to Politically Speaking, exclusively on Cox 9 Roanoke. I'm Kim Stanley. We're joined now by Delegate Bill Cleveland, who represents the 17th House District, covering parts of Botetourt County, the City of Roanoke, and Roanoke County. Welcome to the show, Delegate Cleveland.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here this morning.
Yeah, it's good to see you as always.
Thank you.
Well, you had I believe, a very successful session, and you had a great bill that got passed allowing Roanoke City and Salem schools to start before Labor Day.
Yes.
Why don't you speak a little bit about that?
Well, it was a great accomplishment, I think, for the Valley as a whole. Last year, I introduced a similar bill, and it got killed without any comment, really, in subcommittee. So this next year, through 2010, spent a lot of time just really lobbying the tourism people. Talked to folks in the governor's office to be sure that he understood that we weren't trying to knock heads with his economic development plan, and to explain that the bill was specifically drafted very narrowly to allow primarily Roanoke City, but the way we had to draft it, it included Salem schools also, to open before Labor Day. And we were very pleased that once we got out of the subcommittee, you know, when we got a broader audience as we went forward through the full committee and onto the House, we seemed to generate just more and more momentum, and had a lot of help from the delegation in the Valley. And across the state, this little bill drew a lot of attention, because I found out that there are a lot of school districts who feel the same way that we do here, and that is that having those additional instructional days before Labor Day is a big help. So it was a very, very satisfying chance to get this thing finished up and bring something back home.
Right. Congratulations to you. I too think it's great. I'm in Roanoke County. I think it's great because they get in, they get settled, they get all the introduction and everything done. They get a little break, and then they come back, you know, and then it's just full speed ahead. So I think it's great as well. Well,
it made a big difference, and I'll be interested to see, you know, whether or not this momentum will carry over, because what surfaced as the primary problem, unfortunately, is that you've got the tourism industry, which is a huge contributor to revenue across the state, and the educators on the other hand. And unfortunately, this statute creates a tension between the two that I think should never really exist to begin with. And so we've heard that the governor is going to look at that issue a little more closely, and hopefully there'll be some discussions going forward from here too.
Great, good.
Shifting gears to another high-profile issue that popped up before the session, but strangely there was never any committee action on this issue, is ABC privatization.
Yes.
What's your position on ABC privatization, and do you think the governor will bring this back during next year's session?
Well, my position has been, after I looked at it a little more closely, I'm opposed to the privatization. You know, the situation under the circumstances, as I looked at it, was more of a public safety issue. I mean, the fact that Virginia controls the distribution of distilled spirits is something that's been in place for 70-some years, and there was a reason why we set that up, and I think that Virginia set a pretty good example. The ABC board is one of the most efficient agencies across the state, and actually makes money, and it's not that I'm just in favor of generating income, but the point is that it's well controlled, and the way it's set up now, I think I was initially opposed to it. The question of whether or not it's going to come back again next year, I think it's an unknown. I think it's pretty telling that as much energy as was given to this bill on the governor's side in trying to work out some combination of elements that would satisfy all the factors and parties involved, and still couldn't do it, I think is pretty telling, because we spent a lot of time last year in it. And so I would hope that this issue is going to be put to rest for a while, personally, but that's not to say it won't come back again if there's some combination of things that can be presented that's more solid than what we had originally.
Right, and you are right. There was a lot of energy put into that. That's For certain, as well as transportation. You're on the transportation committee.
I am.
That was a good win for the governor. I think that was a very good win, and hopefully a good win for the state as well. Why don't you talk a little bit about the transportation bill and what your thoughts are, and then a little bit about long-term, because it's really not a long-term plan. So talk a little bit about that.
Well, first of all, I think this was a beginning for us. Not only at the time when I campaigned, but clearly this was an issue that the governor ran on initially prior to his election. Transportation on its own is a huge issue and has essentially been, I don't want to say ignored, but hasn't been given the attention or the money that's deserved, for a number of years now. And so what this plan does is it sets up some things that will at least lay a foundation for us to grow from. The infrastructure bank is one, encouraging, public and private partnerships. The bonding that was approved, it's a good time to do it because of the low interest rates, and so we've got some bonds that have been approved to go forward with some projects, and the governor's committed, to put significant and adequate monies into transportation going forward. Now, long-term range and long-term plans, I'm sure, took a little bit of a hit with the offshore oil crisis that kind of shut down some encouraging news that we thought we were going to have with looking at offshore drilling off the coast of Virginia. And that may take a little more time than necessary than what we anticipated. But overall, I think it's a strong statement that's going to provide some help here in our region too. Not only the Valley View Exchange has got some money appropriated. Now, we're talking a number of years out, but that's a project that there's going to be some money available for, and also Exit 150. That appears to be fully funded and is in the works and moving forward. So those are long-term projects, but they're long needed and are much needed projects for the area. And so I'm encouraged about where we stand with this beginning.
Great. I do want to touch on redistricting just real quick and get your feeling on redistricting. A lot of attention right now.
There's a lot of attention, and I think that this was one of the places where, some hard decisions had to be made even last week. The folks on the House side that put together the Chris Jones plan spent a tremendous amount of time, and with their deviation of just 1% plus or minus, they drew some good lines, and I know that there were some sacrifices that were made across the state, but overall, I feel very good about the House plan. And I think that was evidenced by the fact that it came out of the House with, I think, only eight dissenting votes on the plan itself. The problem, of course, for us, and my perception, is that the Senate plan has a whole lot more to be desired. I don't think there's any getting around the fact that there were some things going on there that I regret that we have to see happen, particularly when we've got senators who happen to be in the same party pulled into the same district all of a sudden, and that's not by accident, of course. And so when I listen to people speak at the Privileges and Elections Committees, their meetings, about 98% of their complaints were with regard to the Senate plan. Unfortunately, the way the process works is when our House plan was sent to the Senate, they fully substituted our plan by just laying theirs on top of ours. So when it came back to us, the choice that we had was, we can get into a fight and not really make any progress, or we can at least establish that our plan is in place and send it on to the governor, which is what we did.
That's great. Well, I tell you, a lot going on, and you've accomplished so much, and we just so much appreciate what you're doing for our area.
Well, I appreciate it very much. We've got a great delegation here in the Valley, and it's been great to work with everyone here.
Good to see you, Delegate Cleveland.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Still to come, we'll be joined by Delegate Ansley Ware, who will share his perspective on this year's session.